Hello everyone, I welcome you all to StudyIQ. In this video, we shall talk about the Draft Defense Production Policy of 2018. The last time around our country got a defense production policy was in the year 2011. So after a very long time, our country will be working on a new defense production policy, and this policy aims at two things primarily: to make India a leader in defense equipment production and to generate employment in India through defense manufacturing. So how our government aims to do that, what will be the steps taken, we shall find out in this video. So let's start. And StudyIQ's pen drive and tablet courses are available for all these exams that you see on the screen. SSC, Bank, RBI, Grade B, UPSC, State PCS courses are available as well. You can visit studyiq.com or call these numbers over here for more information. So recently, Stockholm International Peace Research Institute published their latest research on arms imports around the world. Stockholm, of course, is the capital of Sweden. So this institute publishes a lot of reports about war, about countries procuring weapons, manufacturing weapons. So according to the list made by Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, India has once again topped the list of arms importers around the world. India accounts for 12% of the global imports of arms. And this is not something to be proud of. It basically means that we have failed to create a manufacturing defense base in our own country. So this data that the Stockholm International Peace Research put out was gathered for a period from 2013 to 2017. And the maximum arms imports of India comes from Russia, and that accounts to around 62% of the total arms imports. And from USA, India imports around 15% of its arms. We are talking about 2013-17 again. And Israel, 11%. Of course, if you look at the data after 2015, then this ratio seems more in favor of the United States of America. If you talk about Pakistan, then Pakistan's imports, on the other hand, have actually gone down since the year 2012. Solely its imports from the USA have gone down by 76% from the year 2008-12 to 2013-17. And the reason behind it is not a more pacifist attitude by Pakistan. It has more to do with the economic challenges that this country is facing. Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves are at an all-time low. They are even lower than that of Bangladesh's foreign exchange reserves. Other than that, Pakistan's current account deficit is also reaching dangerous levels. So because of all these reasons, Pakistan has opted not to purchase a lot of weaponry from international sellers. Now if we compare India with China, then China used to be a huge importer of weapons just like India is right now, but China has turned the tables, and China right now figures in the top 5 arms exporters of the world. China's biggest clients include Pakistan and Bangladesh. China supplies 35% of the exports to Pakistan and 19% to Bangladesh. So the Stockholm Research Institute also said that the tensions between India on one side and Pakistan and China on the other side are fueling India's growing demand for major weapons, which it remains unable to produce itself. So even the Stockholm Research Institute said India is unable to produce major weapons. That is why it has to import so much. Now this is where the new defense production policy kicks in. In pursuance of the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's 2018-19 budget announcement related to industry-friendly defense production policy 2018, the Department of Defense Production of Ministry of Defense released a 14-page draft policy on 21st of March 2018. This policy was open for public comments till 30th March, and now the government has started working on this draft policy. Now let's view all the things that are written in this draft policy. Now first of all, let's talk about the aims of the draft policy 2018. The draft policy has 3 aims basically. It has embarked on an ambitious journey to mark India's position among the top defense production countries in the world. Alright. It will focus on self-reliance, and it seeks to change India's position from being the largest importer of arms in the world to, of course, one of the biggest exporter of arms. We also need to notice that there is another aim over here. Of course, they haven't mentioned it, but certainly generation of employment is another very important aim of this policy, because if India becomes a major exporter of weapons, if India becomes a major manufacturer of arms, then obviously around 3 million jobs are expected to be created in India. Now these 3 million jobs will probably be highly skilled jobs. That means that once a skilled employee is employed, he also needs other assistants and clerical staff under him. So in total, we are looking at an employment base of around 4 to 5 million if this policy is implemented properly and if India indeed becomes a defense manufacturing powerhouse. Now, one of the major aims of this policy is also to target the year 2025. For India wants to become self-reliant in at least 13 weapon platforms by 2025. When we talk about these 13 weapon platforms, we are mostly talking about fighter aircrafts, warships, tanks, missiles, artillery, which constitute the bulk of India's imports. Now, when we talk about self-reliance, then self-reliance in defense production has been India's goal since 1960s. Government has also announced a defense production policy 2011. Significant progress in domestic defense production has been made in India as well. Several platforms like Air India Defense Missile System, Akash, light combat aircraft Tejas, main battle tank Arjun, ballistic missiles like Prithvi, Agni, multi-rocket launcher systems like Pinaka, central acquisition radar have been designed and produced indigenously. So we have done a lot when it comes to self-reliance in many sectors, but definitely in terms of fighter aircrafts, warships and tanks, because the Arjun tank has a lot of issues. It still has a lot of issues and the army is not fully satisfied with that. So a lot of things need to be improved in these aspects, and perhaps this policy can help India enhance its capabilities in these platforms. Now the other objectives include an increase in domestic arms sales to 1,70,000 crore rupees, that is 26 billion by 2025, with around 1/5 of it, 35,000 crore rupees, coming through exports. So India will definitely be targeting countries in the Indian Ocean region like perhaps Sri Lanka, even Bangladesh, Seychelles, Mauritius. All these countries will need weapons in the near future, and India can be a great provider of security in the region. Then a very important point in the new defense production policy is the FDI, foreign direct investment. Earlier, the cap of FDI in the defense sector was 49%. Now this policy talks about increasing it up to 74% for certain niche technologies. When we talk about niche technologies, we are talking about technologies that are very specific, that require a lot of expertise. So a lot of companies around the world that have spent decades in mastering a certain technology are not comfortable with sharing it with Indian companies with a 49% stake in the company. They would definitely want a larger stake in the company, and only then they will be willing to share the technology. That is why the government is now mooting for 74% of FDI in the defense sector, and this will probably happen in the near future. There will be some opposition and there will be some criticism on this issue, but the government had to bite the bullet, and in the end it certainly has. For a very long time, the government of India thought 49% FDI will be enough in the defense sector to attract the investment, but it certainly wasn't. The companies kept on waiting for the government to have more liberalized economic policies in terms of FDI and defense, and finally the government has given in. Now, one thing that we need to understand is that once the foreign companies have a much more larger stake in India's defense sector, India will become somewhat reliant on those companies for its needs. That can be a bad thing in the long run, but we have seen two different models in world politics. One is of US, where they have 100% privatized defense sector, and then there is the Chinese model, where still government has a huge control over all the defense companies because most of them are state owned. This gives China a huge advantage because China can pretty much ask its state-owned companies to work on any specific missile defense system or anything that the government deems fit that they want for the army. So this is one advantage that China has. Certainly it will be interesting to see how the government manages to stay in contact with these new companies, these foreign companies that will be investing such a huge amount in Indian defense sector, and how they will complete India's requirements and how will they listen to the needs of the government. That remains to be seen. Now, another thing the government would want to do is introduce liberal policies. Now look, the policy would liberalize licenses that will be provided to defense industries, and also requirements for renewal of licenses will be pruned. By pruned, I mean it will be cut. You prune trees, right? You cut trees, so that's what the government plans to do. It will cut the need of renewal of licenses. It will give our domestic companies some breathing space. They will have to worry about some things less, and the companies will, with a very good track record, will be given favorable consideration in this regard as well. Now, we need to also understand that our domestic companies are simply not doing well. A very stark reminder of this is the US-based Defense News top list of defense companies around the world. Look, in the list of top 10 global defense companies, India doesn't have any company in the top 10. All right, so this is a huge thing. India does not have any company in the top 10 defense companies of the world. Neither does India have any company in top 20. You will only find India's company after the 30th rank. So as per the US-based Defense News list, the top 100 defense companies in 2017, Hall, India's biggest defense company, is placed at 35, and Bharat Electronics Limited, BHEL, is second biggest defense public sector undertaking at 59. So only 2 Indian companies in the top 100 and none of it in the top 20 even. So this is something that we need to work on. That is why the government is working on liberalized economic policies. That is why the government is working on liberalized policies, so that these companies do not have to worry as much about licenses as they used to earlier. Now, another reason why India needs a very robust defense manufacturing industry is because India is faced with such security threats that India cannot afford to be 60-70% import dependent for defense. Furthermore, the international community expects India to be the net provider of security in the Indian Ocean region in the near future. India is also poised to become a $5 trillion economy. It is bound to happen by 2025. You cannot really stop this from happening unless you do some major economic blunders. So since India will become a $5 trillion economy, India should have a military capable of protecting this $5 trillion economy, and that can only happen when India has a robust defense manufacturing industry. Now, one thing that was missing in this policy was accountability. You see, we don't really have a lot of accountability in our public sector undertaking companies in the defense sector, and neither do we have any incentive-based systems. One thing that we have noticed in countries like USA and China is that in the defense sector, especially in the research and development sector, they have a lot of incentives for their engineers. For example, I will give you an example that was in the news a lot a few years ago. Of course, it is not something that we should copy, but definitely it speaks volumes about how pressurized and passionate the Chinese engineers are when it comes to producing weapons and aircraft carriers for their own country. So China recently praised its aircraft engineer who died of heart attack during the first test runs of China's first indigenous aircraft carrier. Now this speaks volumes about how passionate they are about their projects. In India, we have usually seen a system where the scientist, the engineer, gets around 1-2 lakh rupees a month, and whether the project becomes a success or a failure, it doesn't really matter. That scientist will be getting his 2 lakh rupees. So that sort of reduces the accountability a bit, and it also reduces the passion and the drive to strive for something better. If suppose we provide incentives to our engineers, our scientists in the sector of defense related research, then perhaps we can expect more breakthroughs. We have seen this incentive-based research system in both USA and China. So certainly this is something that could have been considered in our 2018 policy. Now, other than that, hackathons will also be organized, and hackathons are basically proposed to solve problems with allocation of 1,000 crore rupees for the year 2018 to 2022. And defense innovation hubs are proposed to encourage startups as well. Now, the one thing that you should remember is that Defense Expo 2018 for the first time intends to project India's defense manufacturing capabilities to the world. The press release states that the Defense Expo 2018 will brand India as a defense exporter of several defense systems and components for all three services. So the Defense Expo 2018 is set to happen in Chennai. Chennai will host the International Defense Expo, and this will be the first time where India will showcase its defense manufacturing capabilities. So that is why it is important. Make sure to remember the host state. So this is pretty much all you need to know about India's defense production policy for exam perspective. And thanks for listening to this video. God bless you all.